Welcome, golfers, to the next episode of the Read It, Roll It, Hole It podcast. Today, we've got a great guest all the way from Dubai, Jamie Mcconnell. Jamie is the head coach out at the Els Club and the Claude Harmon Academy. He's been out there for 10 years. He's had wonderful mentors. He's a really great mind, and I'm really sure you'll enjoy this podcast. So without any further to do, let me please introduce Jamie. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Ollie.
Really looking forward to catching up with you today, Jamie. How is things out in Dubai? Are you warm enough out there?
Yeah, no, it's plenty warm. It's actually a reasonably warm December compared to what we normally get. So I'm enjoying it as we speak.
What's a reasonably warm December look like?
High 20s in middle of the day, high 20s to 30s, and it's kind of late teens to early 20s in the morning, which is just about jumper weather for us. So it's quite nice finally getting to there.
That's so I'm sat here in my waterproofs, my jeans on, 3 coats, and yeah, I'm not jealous at all.
And I can safely say with no sarcasm, I'm definitely not jealous of you in your woolly hat and your winter clothing.
Brilliant, good stuff. So is it 10 years you've been out in the Els Club?
Yeah, just started my 10th year, so literally in it now. I came over 2013. Justin brought me over, and yeah, I just became home, like just working with the Harmons and kind of working at the Els Club. It just became a really great place to work, and I was always somebody who looked for what was next, and kind of had that on the radar. And since getting here, there's never really been a what's next. It's always been just kind of developing this place and kind of building from there.
Brilliant. Well, I'm looking forward to diving into how you're developing, and it sounds like you're doing a wonderful job out there. So just going back to the mentors, I didn't realize you knew Justin Parsons beforehand. So I would like to sort of talk about the mentors with the Harmons, obviously, and Justin being a great coach and a great guy. What talk us through that, sort of how you knew Justin and how that relationship started then before you got to Dubai?
I didn't actually know him before Dubai. He had come across me in 2 different ways. So I'd worked in Spain for a little bit and had gone back home and set up a business back home. And it was going quite well. It was business using TrackMan a lot, and basically had gotten quite a good reputation back home for being able to use this unit, and we kind of traveled around the country with it. And I'd applied for a job over here at a club called Sharjah, which is like probably 40-45 minutes from where we are now, and had taken it. And the guys who had actually hired me kind of talked me out of the job. They kept asking me, like, are you sure you want to work here? Are you sure this is where you want to be? And the questions just kind of caught me off guard, and they gave me a week to think about it. And within a week, I had managed to talk myself out of it for little to no reason, and just continued with what I was doing. And Justin had been looking for 2 teaching pros at the time, and he had asked Ben, who actually interviewed me, like, was there any good candidates that they didn't hire? They'd said, well, look, our number one, pick basically ended up turning it down. Maybe you'd be more interested. Here's a CV. So that was kind of the first time I think I was on Justin's radar. And then later on that year at the British Open, I think he was speaking to the TrackMan guys, and then it had popped up again. They were giving out about me that they couldn't sell any TrackMan units while I was going around the country in my little VW Golf, leasing out TrackMan to pros for a couple €100 a day. And they were kind of giving out about me at the time. So I think the name coming up kind of twice in reasonably quick succession is JP's kind of first introduction to me. And then he'd sent me an email one morning just saying, look, would you be free for a chat? I said, yeah. I had assumed it was about TrackMan. I didn't think anything else of it. And yeah, he had called me and just offered me the job on the spot, and I took it straight away. I didn't know where I was coming to. I didn't know much about Dubai. I didn't know what money I was on. I had no clue. But I knew I wanted to work with the Harmons. And that was just, it was just a green light. So I went for it.
Superb. And what you said there, you knew you wanted to work for the Harmons without being like obvious. Why so much them? Like, I know they're known as one of the best coaches in the world, but why them?
Well, believe it or not, it wasn't just because of the Harmons. I had actually had some experience of it. So 2006, I think it was. I had competed in what was called the Red Bull Masterclass, which was basically they had done 2 days of coaching with the four Harmon brothers, so Butch, Dick, Bill, and Craig. And then they had a tournament at the end of it, and normally the winner of the tournament got to go to Vegas on a trip. So I had won that event and didn't get picked for the trip, and at the time I couldn't understand why, but later on when you start working for the Harmons, you realize what talent they're able to spot and what talent they just say is it's not really talent at all. So I didn't get picked for the trip. I had won the tournament, but I had loved the whole week with them, and I had loved hanging out with the four brothers, and I loved their demeanor, and I loved how much they just enjoyed golf and coaching, and everything about that week just stood out to me. So I always had Vegas and Dubai as the two places that I wanted to kind of work, and then probably Ledbetter's place in Florida, Champions Gate, was the third place. And other than that, they were the only three that I really ever wanted to work at. So like I say, when the job came up with them, it was a bit of a no-brainer.
Brilliant. And what's the biggest sort of lessons you've learned from well, we'll start with maybe Claude, and then we'll come on to Butch and Justin.
I think there's a lot. I think I could probably write a book at this stage of the amount of lessons they've taught me.
Well, reel them off, mate. Let's go for it. Let's hear it.
You know, like, I think, like, Claude, to be honest with Claude actually like changed my life at one point. Like my first trip to Florida, it was probably my second year there, and I hadn't had much exposure to Claude. He'd been over for a week, he had hung out, met him at the Classic, got to follow him around a bit, but never really like got close to him at that stage. And I had told JP at the time I'd really like to go to Florida and, you know, watch Claude teach for a week, and just kind of go over and just see him a bit. So he had said he'd asked him, he said, yeah, no problem. So started to set the trip up, and I said to Claude, I'm like, could you recommend some hotels like around you and I could book? He's like, no. He's like, come stay at mine. So I was like, oh, brilliant. Like, save me some money. I was skint at the time. Like, 9 years ago, I had absolutely no money as a teaching pro. And so anyway, off to Florida I went. It was the April that DJ he was just about to win the match play. So I landed on the Sunday before the Masters, 2 weeks before the Masters, and he was playing John Ram in the final of the match play.
Wow.
So I landed, met Claude and his daughter Alia at a Mexican, and off we went back to his house, and we just sat for hours watching DJ just absolutely pummel the golf ball around that golf course, and basically spent an amazing week with Claude. And I was very, very lucky, and I knew I was lucky, but at the end of the week, Claude's very good at having difficult conversations with you. And the good thing, when you get to know Claude, you realize, like, if it's a difficult conversation he's having it for a reason. I got to the end of the week and he said, look, just FYI, I think you should lose a bit of weight. If you're trying to get juniors and you're trying to get players to go and work hard in the gym, you're going to have to show them the way. And like, at the time I was 120 kilos, so like I was heavy. And yeah, it was something that, like, for me meant a lot to me. It was literally life changing, because everything changed after that, and I obviously started to just get into some fitness and improved diet and things like that. And it was always something that stood to me, that I suppose as coaches, it's very easy to demand things of people, but if you're not willing to do that or something similar yourself, then how can you kind of demand it? And I think that was definitely one of my biggest lessons. And then in the middle of all of that learning, you kind of realize that, like, you're part of something bigger as well. Like, you're not just a teaching pro, you're a part of this big team. And Claude and Butch are at the head of it, and JP at the time, and they're always looking out for you with their best interest at heart. So I think it's part of the reason that you end up staying with them for so long, is just, it's not like a job, it's more like a family than anything else.
That's really great to hear. And you're off on how far did you say you're biking endurance tomorrow?
Oh, I've got 120 or so to do tomorrow, and then next week we're attempting the stupid figure of 250. So I might not have any legs left by next week.
I can't imagine someone who's 120k kg, whatever it is, being able to do that.
No, I definitely, at the time, I most certainly would never have even attempted this. So I always said I don't know how I got into triathlon, because I don't like running, I don't like biking, and I don't like swimming, but here we are.
Well, I think the reason you just said is why you're doing it, maybe because you still want to lead by example, which is great. Like, obviously at that time when you were 120 and you knew you were overweight, I guess, and I'm sure other people would have said it, you'd have looked yourself in the mirror and gone, oh yeah, you're a bit overweight. Why Claude? Why did you listen to him?
I think it was how he put it. Like, you kind of, he can be very direct at times, but it's direct with the best meaning in mind. And I think, like, nobody had ever said it. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things, like, if one of your friends is heavy, you don't really say it to him. You
No,
kind of
yeah,
assume he knows. And, like, to be honest, at the time, I don't want to say I didn't know. Like, I knew I was heavy, but I didn't think I was that heavy. And I didn't
yeah,
think I was that big. But for somebody to actually say it to me, that made me realize, like, oh God, like, people actually see me as the big guy, you know what I mean? Like, and that was a really hard realization to come to, because, like, you can take it one of two ways. You can take it as, like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that.
yeah,
Or, like, oh my God, like, this guy's really actually going out of his way to help me here. And I took it as a ladder. And it's like anything else. Like, it took me, it's still something that, like, takes me figuring out. Like, I've been through nutritionists, I've been through different gym programs, I've been through different diets, and it's, I kind of think of it a bit like a handicap. Like, at that time I was a 36 handicap at it, and now I reckon I'm getting somewhere near like a single figure handicap at it, but I've still got a coach, I've still got a fitness trainer, I've still got a nutritionist, I've still got, and like every single time I kind of find something new, it's like, oh my God, it's like when we're teaching people to chip, and it's like they suddenly get contact, and then all of a sudden they're able to spin the ball, and you just see the levels like growing. But like, to me, it's the same idea. It's like you're learning, and for me, it was just something I was not good at, and not something I ever understood, and not something that was ever taught to me as a young person. So, and it's helped me with other people as well, because you start to spot it in students. Like, I have a couple of people that play at a fairly high level, and when it comes to like diet and things like that, you can see where they wear out and where they're not fueling properly. And like, we're on a golf course for 5.5, 6 hours sometimes. Like, if you've eaten breakfast at 8 o'clock and you haven't eaten until 4 that evening, like, you're gonna crash. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Like, it's not even, it's inevitable. It's just you don't admit it because it's not intense exercise. But yeah, it's I would say I'm slowly getting towards a closer single figure handicap. I'm still probably in the teens, but we're edging closer.
You're still learning. That's great. Along that journey of learning, has that been able, what am I trying to say here? Has that helped your coaching, or what lessons have you learned going through that struggle of improving to be able to pass on to your students?
Yeah, like, absolutely. And I think it's, for me, learning comes from everywhere. Like, it's not just like golf coaches. So like, I've had, there's friends of mine who are fitness trainers, and I'll look at stuff they'll do and I'll watch it and I'll go, huh, that's really good, I might steal that. And like, whether it be like an Excel document on goal setting, or something they've said, or the way they've gone about something, like just their emotional intelligence maybe in a situation, and I kind of twist it into something that I could use. So yeah, like, learning comes from everywhere, and the more coaching I get off different coaches, the more I'm able to actually help students in different ways. And you also know when to hand something over as well. Like, there's something that's not in your wheelhouse, you can spot it quicker, but you can also hand it over to somebody who knows. So like, if I have somebody with a nutrition problem, I'm like, look, you've got nutrition problems, but here's the guy that's going to help you. It's not going to be me. So yeah, I think that without a doubt, it's the more coaching I receive, definitely the more I learn.
That's good. I like that growth mindset, Jamie. That's good. And so moving on to Butch, I want some. Can you give me like a story of him coaching? And then maybe some sort of funny moment, because I just love his stories. Can you pass on any of them off the top of
Oh,
your head?
God.
I have not prepped you there.
I've got loads of them. I'm just trying to think of the ones that I can say publicly and the ones I can't. I think, I suppose I always, maybe it's not so much Butch, but that like the best lesson I've ever seen Claude give was to an 85-year-old man. It was that trip to Florida, and this guy walks in with the biggest chicken wing you've ever seen, and he says to Claude, like, I'm really struggling to control the distances on my wedges. And Claude looked at him, and Claude at the beginning of a lesson never really says a lot, and sometimes doesn't say a lot at all in a lesson. Looked at him, and he fired up TrackMan, and he just put one number on the screen, which was it was dynamic loft, and it was like 58 degrees. And he's like, you see that number? And he's like, yeah. And he explained to the guy what it meant, basically the angle of the face, and that's what it means. And look, your face is this, and we want to get it to this. And while he was doing this, he had taken a video of the guy before, but he hadn't shown it to him. And anyway, he basically stood there for an hour and a half saying to the guy, yep, no, yep, no, as he got closer and closer to the figure. And then he started to get like 10 in a row where it's like, yep, yeah, yeah. So as he's in the middle of this, he records another video and looks at the video, and sure enough, the chicken wing is as straight as an arrow. Like, it was bullet straight. And he showed him the before and after. And literally all he's done is gone, okay, there's the number, get that down. And the guy figured it out. And it was probably the smartest coaching and the simplest way you ever could have gotten somebody to fix that. And I was like, that was way too easy for you to do that. Like, it absolutely blew my mind with how simple he made it look. So from a coaching side, probably, with the Harmons, that's probably one of the best lessons I've seen. With Butch, probably my funniest story is from Carnoustie, the British Open a couple of years ago. Butch always likes like a coffee and a muffin in the morning. So we're really early on the range. He was waiting for somebody, I think it was Ricky. And I said to Ma, do you want to go to the van at the back and we get a muffin and have a chat and blah, blah, blah. That was fine. So we went around the corner. We're at the coffee shop anyway, and I go to pay for it. I said, no, it's fine. I thought, big boss is here. I'll look after this. And I hadn't really been fully awake at this stage because I just landed off a flight the previous night. And I tried to hand your man dirhams instead of sterling. They look very similar in coloring, like very similar color, very similar size. And I tried to hand your man like 10 dirhams instead of 10 pounds. And the guy goes, sorry, we don't take this. And Butch copped it so quickly. He's like, oh, don't mind this guy in the Monopoly money. I'll pay. And he hands him £10 and Butch paid. But that is never the end of the story of Butch. So literally all day, every single person that Butch met that I was around, he was like, make sure he doesn't try and buy a coffee. He's only got Monopoly money. So he's gone up to like Ricky, DJ, Phil Mickelson, and just telling them all like, oh, just make sure he doesn't bring you for coffee. You'll end up paying. And it was the most embarrassing moment of my life. Like the entire day, he did not let it go.
I love it. Does he still remind you of it now when you
look, I haven't seen him in a while because he's obviously not traveling to the Open and stuff now. Okay. But I'm sure if I do see him, he'll probably drop me a reminder at some point.
Super. Good stuff. So, Jamie, just going back to the TrackMan, tell us about your. I just want to hear that journey again, where you bought a TrackMan, or did you buy two TrackMans? You started selling one or hiring them out, and just tell us a little bit about that story.
It was right at the beginning. Well, I say the beginning of TrackMan, not really. It was the beginning of TrackMan becoming commonplace in coaching. So at that stage, nobody used it for coaching. So I had done some research. I had started to look at guys like Andrew Rice and TrackMan Maestro, and these were starting to become, I wouldn't say popular, but definitely aware. People were aware of them. But in Ireland at that stage, there was 8 TrackMan units, and all 8 were in fitting centers, and there wasn't one coach using it. And I'd looked at it and thought, right, okay, I was starting to enjoy, I'd used it a couple of times, and then they had brought out the 3E, the wireless one, and it was the first kind of real commercial one that I thought was like usable. So anyway, I basically had taken out a car loan for 21,000 euros and spent 1,000 euros on a car and 20,000 euros on a TrackMan, which the bank weren't overly impressed. But yeah, so I basically bought a TrackMan and set up something called the TrackMan Roadshow. And the only reason I'd done it was because I just didn't want to go back into a pro shop. I knew I wanted to coach full time. and I wanted to do anything I could to make that more feasible. So I set up this Facebook page called the Trackman Roadshow, and the idea was that pros could just lease it out for a day. And I had said to them, look, I'll come around, I'll, if you want me to teach with it, I'll teach with it. If you want to teach with it, you can teach with it, and I'll stand there and explain the numbers. If you want me to F off and leave you with it, I'll go for a coffee in the clubhouse for the day. Like whatever you need, it's there. You're just renting me and the unit for the day, and however you want to use it, you can use it. You can use it to fit. And it was brilliant because it gave me like such a high volume of using it. And I just became known as the Trackman guy. So like all of a sudden you're going around doing like, I think that I topped it out at 26, 27 days by the time I'd finished it. But you're doing that every single day, and you just start to get really good at looking at ball flight and knowing why it's happened. And before you know it, you just don't need the numbers. You just know it. So for me, it was a huge learning curve, and it was great because I got to watch other people teach. So I was literally getting paid to sit there and watch some people teach, like some really good coaches like Dave Carney, and there's a few others from around the country, and it was wonderful. Like it was one of the best things that I did. And like there was times it was hard because you're up at like 4 a.m. to drive across country to spend 2 hours spend 10 hours in the freezing cold for the day. But
not often 29 degrees, is it?
Yeah. But it was like I say, it was one of the best times I had, and it gave me a huge amount of experience, and it.
Hello.
There we are. Sorry, I don't know what happened there.
So I just lost there. So yeah, you were going around the country.
Yeah, so just going around the country, just teaching nonstop, and I got to watch other people teach all the time, and it was it was a really good way to get my name out there and get my name on the radar. So Trackman didn't particularly like me because nobody would buy a unit in Ireland, but it was.
Did they not? Do they like you now, Trackman?
They love me now because as soon as I left, people bought like 20 of them because nobody could do without it.
Do you like work for them, or do like not work for them? But anyway, is there a relationship there, or?
Yeah, look, I still say it's the best launch monitor. I think the workability of it and the things you can do with it are fantastic if it's used the right way. But it is just a tool at the end of the day. But I've always gotten on well with them. I've done some of their educational seminars for them, and I just really like using it. I find it very simple and very easy to use. But I've seen people use it badly as well. So I kind of understand when people get an idea that other monitors are better. And to be honest, it's kind of beauty's in the eye of the beholder, really. It's all about how you use it, whether it's a Trackman, whether it's a quad, whether it's a Foresight. Doesn't really matter. It's more about the person using it than the launch monitor itself.
Yeah, I totally agree. The on the Trackman, so let's talk long game for the amateur listeners. What are, I don't know, the most important numbers on there, and what maybe after seeing thousands of amateurs, what do they all need to get better at? What's the trend that they all need to get better at, and how do they do it?
No, the funny part, I'll put it a bit differently. And Trackman don't ever like me saying this, but I don't look at the numbers all that much, believe it or not. So like I look a lot at the flights. So normally what I'll do with a student, and like this is probably the thing that most amateurs can get better at, is I'll put up the display of the ball flight. So I love having that center line down the middle and being able to see like ball flight. So I'll tag the ball flight so I can actually get like I'll let you hit 5 balls and I'll just tag them number 1, and I'll look for a pattern. So what I want to see is a pattern. So ideally I'll see with all your shots, if you're hitting a fade, they all start left, they all curve right. Or if the draw, they all start right and they all curve left. And to be honest, if people just began with that, they'd probably fix the numbers way better. Because really, the only way of doing that is to have the correct numbers. But we all try and adjust the numbers to get the ball flight, which to me is the wrong way around. So like I always start with that. I always like to look at like center line and just kind of say, okay, well, if that was a tree, like I'll even put an alignment stick and a noodle in front of people and go, right, which shape do you want to hit? Do you want to draw it or fade it? And most people go draw. So I'm like, okay, there's a tree. Start it right, curve it left. And if you can't do that, there's no point looking at the numbers. And then I'll use that as a gauge. So like if I have somebody that's drawn it too much, I'll maybe put them into a fade a bit for a few shots, then take the stick away, and then I say feel a little bit of that and see what comes out. And again, I keep looking at the plot charts way more than I'm looking at the numbers, but I barely look at any numbers apart from carry. Unless I'm just trying to explain something to somebody, I'll mainly look at just carry numbers, and then I'll actually look at the shot dispersions, and I use the pictures on it a lot. So like centeredness of strike is a huge addition in the last couple of years. And yeah, that's basically what I look at. I'm probably the guy who doesn't look at numbers very often in TrackMan.
I love that. I think that's great advice, that center line. And a lot of the ranges, like we've got here at Tickenham, we've got the top tracer range, and it's a dumbed down TrackMan, if you like. It's definitely not as good, but it still gives a good guide, and it has that image on there. So that's great for the listeners to go away and give that a go and look at the sort of pattern. That's key.
And you can do it on anything, right? Like any launch monitor will give you the same thing, right? So again, the accuracy of the numbers doesn't really matter as long as it's tracking the ball flight correctly. Like, and you've got your reference, and that's all you really need.
Definitely. No, that's good. Do you have like a TrackMan range at Els, or is it?
We don't. One of the clubs down the road has one, but we don't have one. But we let all our students use our TrackMan anyway, so it doesn't make a huge difference to us not having it, because we have 2 TrackMan at the facility. So students as they need them can just come in and just grab them when they're free, and just use them away.
Brilliant. And on the TrackMan, do you use the putting part of it much?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, probably wrongly in some ways, but I use it a lot for visual. I love the visual of the down the line, seeing the breaks. So again, showing people like where their start line actually is versus where they've put the tee down or where we've picked as a start line. So yeah, I use it a lot for that. But again, I don't use a massive amount of the data on it. Maybe bar start line. I do like start line, and I do like the resulting speed. But other than that, no, I just kind of, I really like that visual from down the line. Test center is probably the one that I use the most. So I really like that new test center on the iPad, where you can switch up the greens and switch up the pin positions and show people like the management of a golf course. Like that to me is super powerful. Like that's where people can save a ton of shots. Is like looking at a pin and going, oh, do you know, if I'm 20 foot short right versus 5 foot long left, I've actually gained strokes. So yeah, I use that a lot.
I've not seen that part of it, so I'll have to check that out.
You can only get it on the iPad. So you have to get it on the iPad, and you have to get it on TrackMan Go. But essentially what it does, it'll give you 9 options of different shape greens. And then on each green, there's 9 or 10 flags. So obviously if you have a 5 iron to a center pin, it's just got a big circle around it. But if it puts it in the corner, the circle becomes a little bit obscure. So it's like it'd be like it's squeezed. It'd be like an oval or something, depending on where the safe area is. So it'll show you like where actually you're gaining strokes versus the field and where you would lose. Really, really powerful now.
Like it. Is there can you like explain a bit of that sort of course strategy, perhaps over the podcast today, to share with the listeners, so they can go away and try on the course to explain a bit more what you mean there of gaining and losing, missing in the right areas?
Yeah, I think like obviously you've got strokes gained on the PGA Tour, but I think every level I suppose has different measurements. Like I don't think there's any value in a 20 handicapper comparing strokes gained. I don't know how they could ever get over that figure, if you know what I mean. So like I kind of break it down into, to get somebody below 90, I use 4 shots. So I basically say, look, can you drive the ball in play over 180 yards? So that's job 1. Job 2 is in regulation, can you get within 50 yards of a green? So a par 4, you do not need to hit in regulation to break 90. You just need to put it within 50 yards. That'd be tick 2. Then anywhere inside 50, can you put it on the green? Tick 3. And then 2 putt. So realistically, if you did that on every hole, you shoot 90. So it only takes one, what I call a bonus shot, whether it be hit a green in regulation on a short hole, a par 5, a par 3. hit a really good chip or hit a really good putt, and all of a sudden you're below 90. So to me, that's the kind of metrics I use for that kind of standard. Then as we get kind of below 80, I'm always looking to reduce double bogeys. So, you know what I mean? Normally, if they can achieve all of those, then you're looking to go, okay, well, how can we take out all the doubles? You don't need to make more birdies. You just need to make less bogeys and less doubles. So, if you hit it in the Bondi, just hit it out, put it back in play and continue. Don't run up 2 or 3 shots going from there. And that rule alone can go down to plus handicappers as well. And then the closer they get to scratch, then I start to look, single figure to scratch, I start to look at more detailed stats. So start to look at, we use Upgame a lot. I've used Golf Stat Lab a bit, but starting to look at strokes gained, and then starting to look at how they manage a course. And it's kind of one of the things I've really enjoyed with Upgame is that they can throw out some really powerful reports about how you can manage golf courses. And that's been super helpful with a couple of players lately. But at least what I always find I like about having a stat system running in the background with better players, you can track progression and you can track regression. So if somebody changes the driver and it's not working, you can straight away point out, look, the last 3 weeks we've lost compared to where we were, can we just switch back? And same with swing changes. It's like you change something and 3 months later you've seen a positive action. It's like, look, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. So it kind of keeps them on track and keeps them focused.
Let's go down that line of stats then, Jamie. I love the by the way, I love the simplicity there of the break 90, the break 80. That's wonderful. Is that part of your training plan that you have on your website?
Yeah, the training plan that I do is generally with higher level players, but pretty much anybody who comes in, I've actually got it on my blog somewhere, because I normally send that out to guys just to, any of the higher handicappers who are circling around about high 90s or 100. I always give it to them because it's a real interesting task, because if you actually do it on a scorecard, it's what I would lead a lesson with. So example, if you went out and you put 2 or 3 breaking 90 scorecards in this week, and you came back and, let's say your driving's fine, your approach inside 50, you're fine, your 50's fine, and then you've got 6 3-putts. I'm like, well, it's clearly not your swing as to why let's go on the putting green. So it helps me kind of guide those people, because they're also the ones who, I suppose, have the expectation of how they should hit it, but they don't necessarily have the understanding of what creates a score. So normally what I'm trying to do with them is kind of show them the difference between, okay, look, if you thin one and it's front edge of the green, you haven't lost shot. Mm-hmm. But if you 3-putt from there, you've lost a shot. And they would always associate that, well, it's because I hit the iron really bad and I did this and this and this, that's where I've lost shots. But it's actually it's way more to do with the fact that, look, you 3-putted. It's really simple. We need to make less 3-putts. So yeah, it's a good little way of getting people to not only analyze a game, but also break the game down into what they should do, because they just see the PlayStation Golf, the tour pros play. So what they do is basically go out and think they should go at every pin, but it costs them so many shots. Whereas, if they manage their way around the course, okay, I don't need to hit the green. Where's the easiest place to hit in from? Well, I'll hit it to there with a 7-iron rather than hitting it at the green with a 5-wood. It's okay, now you're saving strokes.
Very simple, and I love that approach there. That's really cool. So with the better players, you get into the up game stuff. Can you explain maybe a bit more detail what up game has to offer? And it's a stat-based system, right?
Yeah, Upgame started as just stats. They had approached me probably a year or 2 ago. Samir, who's the owner, approached me and asked me would I try it. And I had used I use loads of different stat systems, so I don't, I'm not stuck with one. Whatever the players use, they use, but I always find it a really easy intro, because it's just a drag and drop system, and it becomes very easy to kind of put stats in for people who are new to it. So yeah, I'd met Samir a couple of years ago. He asked me to try it out. At the time, to be honest, I didn't really like it. I thought it was quite clunky, and he asked for some feedback, and I said, look, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. He's like, okay. And I've kind of been in that situation before where I've given people feedback, and about 3 weeks later rings me up and he goes, could you just update the app and just tell me what you think of the new one? And he had changed everything on it. And like everything I'd said, he had changed, and I'd used that. And I was like, oh, well, that's better, but I still don't like this, 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 and this. And again, like 4 or 5 weeks later, he's like, okay, I've changed it all. And he just kept doing it. So every time I'd use it, he'd be like, what do you not like? And eventually, like, he's gone as far now. If you use that app, they've actually got everything on it. So they've got, you can do swing analysis on it. You can do like practice plans on it. You can do everything on the one app, which, as far as I know, I haven't seen any that have that. That is a stat system, a video system, a practice system. And it's really cool. It just keeps everything in one place, and it makes my life a lot easier when dealing with students rather than using 4 different apps.
Brilliant. Nice. Well, we'll check that out. Good. And I think we've covered really the importance of keeping stats, sort of removing the emotions. I think you've put that on one of your blogs.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, there always is more, I suppose, more to around. But at the same time, the idea of stats is you're looking for trends. And I think a lot of the time when you speak to players, like I say, they can be emotional about things. Be like, oh, I'm hitting the driver off the heel. And I'm like, okay, but you've lost 4 strokes around the greens because you haven't chipped the ball very well. Forget the heel hit that's going up the middle of the fairway. Like, we're seeing here is the real problem. And I think that's always important. And like I say, you've always got to give them a little bit of what they want and a lot of what they need. And you kind of, by using the stats, you can kind of pre-plan what you're going to do in sessions. So if I have a player coming in that's been out for 3 or 4 weeks playing, it's great to just know what you're going to do. So I'll have all their sessions pre-planned, and then we can crack on from there without really too much, I suppose, too much friction.
Brilliant. No, that's good. And then sort of leading on from the stats to the practice area, if we focus around practicing putting here, what would you say the trends are? You've mentioned 3 putting there to break 90. So what's the common sort of reason for 3 putts, and what's your favorite practice drills to help golfers with that?
Speed is my pet peeve on putting. Everybody comes wanting to stroke the putt better, and or stroke the putter better, and I just think honestly 99.9% of people just have an absolute terrible concept of speed. And the problem with that is that when their speed is off, everything might as well be off.
Yeah.
Speed's off, the read is wrong. If the read's wrong, their start line is probably going to look wrong as soon as they've let the ball's left the face. And they just assume because it's missed the hole right or left, it's like, oh, it's the start line. And it's way more about speed. I think speed and skill is probably the 2 things. I think people rely a lot on technical. And when you look at all the really great putters, they're not that technically amazing. They tend to look like they have a lot of flow. Like I always think of, like, you look at Tiger, you look at Ricky, you look at Shane Lowry, like they're all very different styles and different ways to putt, but they're all brilliant putters, and they all look like brilliant putters. They walk onto a green, they look like they're going to hole it. Whereas you look at the guys who are a little bit cagey on it, they always look nervous, and I think that comes down to skill versus like trying to be technically proficient or technically perfect. And I think, if people were better at speed and just tried to actually putt rather than create perfect putting strokes, they'd probably become better.
So how do you develop that skill?
I think I like to use pictures a lot. And like one of my favorite games is from Cameron McCormick. It's I think he called it the 3-point game. And it's basically you put 2 tees, you make a gate, a wide enough gate halfway down a putt. And you've got to get the ball through that gate. So like wide enough would be a bit bigger than a putter head. So you've actually got a bit of maneuvering depending on what speed you hit it at. It's not got to be on a needle. It's like, okay, you've got a bit of width.
You got a window.
And then you've got like a semicircle of tees 2 foot behind the hole. So that's your speed zone. So you got another point if you get that. And then if you get it in the hole, you've got 3 points. So, I always say to people, like, look, if you're getting 10 points every time, you're doing your job. You're starting it on the line you want, and you're hitting it at a good speed. If you're doing that consistently, you're going to hold putts. Eventually you're going to get it.
What length of putt? Sorry, Jamie.
I kind of, again, you can do it on any length. The further back I go, the wider I make the gate. So example would be if I'm doing like 10 footers, the gate's probably a putter head width.
Okay.
If it's 15, it's a bit bigger than a putter head. If I'm going for a 40 foot, I make it like huge, like 1.5 foot apart, because really,
Yeah.
at 40 feet, the line doesn't matter.
Mm.
Speed matters. So yeah, I basically do that, and again, it gets people thinking in terms of the line they want to hit and the picture they want to create. And then, like, I had a conversation with one of my girls the other day. I said to her, "You need to just putt," and she came back with the question, "What do you mean? How do I just putt?" And I'm like, "Do you understand how silly that question sounds? How do I just putt?" I'm like, "You walk onto a green with one ball and you just putt." And she couldn't grasp this concept. I'm like, I won't name her, but she walks onto the green and she sets up her tees perfectly. She sets up her drills perfectly. She does this and this and this. And I'm like, you never just putt, do you? And like, I'm her ultimate nightmare because she says, she goes, "You just rock up and hole everything." I'm like, yeah, because I'm a good putter and I just see things. I'm like, I just walk on and try and putt. Like, I don't try and analyze it. I just putt and accept and move on. And she hates it. She absolutely hates doing anything short game against me because, like, I am creative. I'm not very technically driven, but like, I love standing up and just putting. Like, you just give me a putting competition against one of the kids, I love it. And I love beating them because it annoys them so much.
That you're talking about there is that picture, seeing the picture, and that drill that Cameron has shared with you is training them to see that picture. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. And it's the same when you're just putting, right? Like, you're just trying to create a picture of the putt that you want, so for me, like, it's extremely valuable to just have people, like I say, just putt sometimes and just try and create an image in their head of what they want the ball to do. And if they don't get that image, fine, move on, next putt.
Can you train that image further? Is there other drills that you do to improve visualization?
Yeah, like, for me, again, another one that I always like is like one I talk to a lot with Carl Morris, is like just through eyes. And I always find, like, really good putters don't look at the hole often. They look at it for a really long time.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And like, for me, when I'm putting, I love to look at the hole. And it was something Carla pointed out years ago. I love to look at the hole and see the last bit of the ball going in and the speed it's going in at and what part of the hole it's going in. And like, I work everything back from there. I don't read it from the ball to the hole. I actually read it from what I see the ball doing going into the hole and work back. So again, it's just another form of it. But to me, it's beginning with the speed it's going to hit the hole at. It's a picture of the ball going in. It's where it's going in. Like, they're all pictures that I'm creating in my mind there.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love that. I think one of Carl Morris's drills that he's got in his book is there's two balls, and I think it's on the perch or off the perch. I can't remember exactly. And he hits one ball, and you just watch the ball go. You don't putt to anything. You just hit it. You just watch the ball, see the journey, and then the second ball, you're trying to replace that ball on the perch. So you're trying to knock it off.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to train the visual side, but also your touch, which is what you're talking about.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
Good stuff. Jamie, I've really thoroughly enjoyed that conversation. Thank you very much. Energy's been great. I've learned a lot. I'm sure the listeners will learn a lot. Whereabouts do they go and find out more about you?
Easiest is just probably my Instagram, just JM Golf Coach, and you'll find everything that you need there, really.
Great. And you've got online stuff that people can see and sign up to if they want to.
Anything they need, it's probably there. And if they ever need anything, feel free to reach out and just message me as well. I'm more than happy to answer it.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time. Don't get too hot. Have plenty of sun cream. I've packed my sun cream away for 6 months now.
You won't need it for a while over there for sure.
No, unfortunately not. But anyway, you keep well, keep doing what you're doing. The club and the junior sections, we haven't even gone on to that today, but I know you've got a thriving junior section there with over 190 kids, I think, if that's right.
Yeah, we've got about 200 all in all. So yeah, they've been doing us proud this year, and they do a great job, and they're fun to watch develop.
Super. Well, keep doing that. We can't go for a podcast talking to you talking about the Els Club without mentioning the Bibbies. So Kate and Josh, who I know very well, and Tim, the dad, they're great guys. They're doing well out there. They're practicing hard.
They definitely are. It's the two of them have developed really well over the last couple of years, and it's great to see what they've done and what they continue to do. So I'm looking forward to see what damage they do over the next couple.
Yeah, definitely. They did well in a competition last week, I think, didn't they? Where you had 60 odd kids playing in loads of different events.
Yeah, Kate actually came second in a men's event. So they had let her into a men's open, but the rule was she had to play off the same tees. And yeah, she pretty much beat everybody bar one. So it was an impressive performance for her.
That's pretty cool. She hits it longer than the men anyway, so that's fine.
But she hits it longer than me, that's for sure.
And me. She did that 3 years ago. Anyway, Jamie, thanks again, and take it easy.
Pleasure.